Hey guys, this week I wanted to go over how I build picture frames and that you can do it just as easily as I can. This is not a very difficult or complicated process, so just watch the video. You'll realize that this is something you can do in a day. Let me know what you guys think down below and hopefully I can show you something new. Building picture frames for your puzzles is actually pretty easy. It might seem a little complicated, but I think once you start getting into it, you're going to realize it's just a box basically. Normally, I would use a foam board for the backing of the puzzle. In this situation, the puzzle is actually a little bit too big for this backing, so I just found some cardboard and we're going to use that. Another thing you're going to need is some sort of adhesive. I like this 3M Super 77 brand. It's always done me good, so I just stick with it. And then of course, whatever material you're using for the actual frame itself. What I like to do is get the puzzle itself, flip it over on its face, then spray the glue, and then put the backing on it. I've already done it once already, that's why the paper towels are here, because the glue overspray. Make sure all the puzzle pieces are kind of flat. And then just start spraying a liberal amount of glue. So I'll go one coat that way, shake it up again, and then I'll go this way. We just bought a mini fridge, so I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to use the cardboard. Kind of line it up the best you can. What I like to do is make sure that the cardboard's well oversized, and then I'll go to the bandsaw and cut it down to the proper width and length that I need. And then flip her over. So it's oversized, like I said. Now I'll go back and trace out the line for the diameters that I need, and then we'll start building the frame. So like I said before, I still use my 1/4-inch setup block and a pencil. Make sure the pencil lead is sharp, and what I typically do is I'll go one side sharpen the pencil, one side sharpen the pencil, and just go that way. Sometimes your puzzles will decide to do something like this, where the top just kind of peels apart. So I'll go back with that same glue, I'll just spray it on a scrap piece of wood. And then I'll just kind of dab both ends. And then I'll just kind of push it back down in its spot. If there's any extra, I kind of just wipe over it. The glue dries clear, so it kind of hides it for you if you have an issue. And just let it sit and it'll do its job. Now that we traced out the border, we'll cut it on the bandsaw, and this gives me the final size of the backing and the puzzle, so when I start making the frame, I'll know what to reference. So what I'm doing now is getting my setup block so I can start putting it against the fence and the table saw and getting myself a track for the picture frame to sit through. I typically like using the 1/4 inch. It's been about a week since the last time I used my table saw, so I just want to always make sure that the blade is 90. I think we're good. Get my 1/4 inch setup block. Make sure that that's at its full, as high as it can get. So you just watched me make my first miter cut, and I'll bring it back to the table and I'll put the puzzle actually in this shoulder, and that will give me the reference on how far I need to go to make my next miter cut. So instead of trying to do measurements, what I do is after I do my first cut, I'll bring the puzzle and I'll put it in this shoulder right here. But I won't inline it with this edge of the miter. I'll put it to the furthest edge or the closest edge to the miter angle. Hopefully that makes sense. But I'll put it right there, and then that will give me the proper distance on the other end where I can start doing my markings and finally make my cut. So I already did this, but I forgot to record it. But basically I get my straight edge and I reference the border of the puzzle and I draw my line. This, like I said, is just visual reference points. And keeping true to my channel, keep it simple, stupid, I use my digital gauge here and I bring it to the point of that line that I just scored, and then I draw where my cut line is going to be. This gives me visual representation of where I'm cutting and what I'm doing, and I much rather make the mistake here instead of cutting it and then finding out I made a mistake. What you'll want to do is once you make that cut is come back and make sure it's a proper fit to your piece. You don't want to just assume that everything is good, because once you start gluing things together, it becomes very hard to fix. So that's going to be the top piece. Now that I know that this piece is good, I'll make a copy to the remaining material I have, and I'll just make the cut. So I'll have the top and the bottom done, and then I'll go and do the sides. Every time I do a side though, I always go back and make sure that it's all lining up right and I'm not getting too far out of line, because like I said, you don't want to mess this up. This is where you make the money, so pay attention and take your time. Now once you get your top and your bottom piece perfect, you're going to need to start working on your side pieces. So I get my other piece of material, I make my first 45 just like I did in the beginning, and I flush this edge up as perfect as it can be. And then I'll come down to this edge and I'll do the same thing. I'll use the top piece as my reference line, and I will score myself a line. Then I'll get my cheater gauge here, and now I know where to cut it. And I'll do the same thing on both sides. When I first started getting into woodworking, I didn't have a lot of the tools, which I'm sure some of you guys are in the same boat. So when I used to do the picture frames, I would have to do one corner at a time, and it would take a long time to do. So I went online, found these strap clamps, and they're great because you can apply pressure, clamp it down, and then it also has a little screw right here that allows you to apply even more pressure to each of the four corners at the same time. What I do is I get little scrap pieces also to bring it up off the table. And that ensures that it sits in the middle of this little bracket piece. If it's too low or too high and you're applying the pressure on the corner, it's gonna wanna walk itself off of that corner for you. I used to put brad nails on the corners. I don't think that's necessary. It is just a picture frame for a puzzle. And once it goes on the wall, it never gets touched again. So you could do the nails if you think you need it, but I have about 10 of these I've built so far, and the glue is strong enough for me.